In Germany, it was flat no from every bank that we talked to, and I talked to multiple banks.
So what are German loan sharks like then? But rarely do you hear an actual story where it plays out right in front of you. That illustrates it quite nicely, actually.
I've got a few of those. Unfortunately, who doesn't like strawberries?
This is the Startup Knockout Podcast, smacking you in the face with German startup scene. I'm your host, Timo Higgs. Welcome, one and all, to the Startup Knockout Podcast. I'm your host, Timo Higgs. Today, we have a really interesting guest. This is a friend of mine, Derek Barrilleaux. And Derek came to Munich quite a bit before me. He's been in the German ecosystem while also keeping a foothold in the States. And he's got a really interesting overview. And we're going to learn all about that from him today. So, Derek, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Happy to be here, Timo. Happy to help you out.
Great. So, first of all, let's get into your sales background. Tell us a little bit about your journey through sales and how that shaped you.
I started out at the sales side. I've basically done pretty much anything you can imagine on the sales side of the house. So I started out being the sales admin, sorting out purchase orders, went into telemarketing, became inside sales. Then I went into like business development and big account management, and I've done basically the whole spectrum. How it kind of influenced me and kind of where I am. But the big thing about every sales role is it makes you coin operated and numbers oriented, right? So you're really target motivated and focused on hitting that whatever that number is, right? There's a lot of good qualities that come for that, and that you get ruthless when it comes to trying to get to that goal, and you try to trim every bit of fat that doesn't help you to attain that goal. On the other side, it can lead you to be a bit short-sighted sometimes.
Do you feel that most people in sales are able to maintain kind of a good overview, or do they too often get tunnel vision on their objectives and their KPIs?
The challenge when trying to manage a sales team is to set those targets so that they serve the organization and not the salesperson.
Yeah, maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm interested in that, particularly also how that differs between large organizations when they have large sales teams and more startup oriented organizations where it's a smaller sales team. Okay, let's dive deeper then into your professional career. So FlavourSys was after you got out of sort of like enterprise sales, if I'm correct. And what were they doing at the time? What specifically were they building that interested you?
From where I'd come from the storage industry before Avid, it felt like it was making video production more accessible and making standard IT technology more usable for video production workflows, which it does do. I looked at my storage industry contacts, my production industry contacts, and the reseller partners that I built up, and I kind of saw a great fit for my skills, network, and background.
Coming from the world of big business, what were some of your expectations at that time?
Yeah, that's a great question, Timo. I mean,
Is that a loaded question?
well, no, it just reminds me of a few things. Like my title, which I set, was Vice President of Worldwide Sales because I came from a big company and I wanted to be the Vice President of Worldwide Sales, and I wanted to hire a sales team and build out a global sales organization. That was a complete disconnect with what the company that hired me wanted. They wanted the sales guy, right? But then when I came to him, I was like, okay, well, let's hire an inside salesperson. Let's hire some people to help us in these different regions. Why? We have you. Sales. I would say naivety. If, I don't mean to be rude, but
I think there's a healthy dose of naivety in every startup. Otherwise, they probably
yeah,
wouldn't do it if they realized the mammoth task that was sitting in front of
exactly,
them.
exactly.
Yeah, I am guilty of that many times over. So FlavourSys eventually became Projective,
Yeah.
and you were a big part of that rebranding. What was kind of the philosophy of the rebranding? Why were you doing it, and what was that meant to accomplish?
When I first joined FlavourSys, we sold the flagship product was called Strawberry. The problem was coming into an enterprise corporate environment, certainly in America, talking to very high level post production contacts. It's really difficult to be taken seriously with that name. Neither the term FlavourSys nor Strawberry said anything about what our value was to a post-production environment. Because we had some momentum with the product name Strawberry, we kept the product name, but we decided to rebrand the company as Projective so that we could, our value being helping people with their editing projects and to work on their project.
Now, leaving FlavourSys behind, nowadays Projective, it's been around for a while. It's more of an established company. Give us the little elevator pitch of what Projective brings to the market.
So we are a post-production collaboration platform. That's everything that happens after the images are put on camera. So you have these very complicated workflows that happen where you're doing editing, and you've got teams of people from directors to producers to different stakeholders alongside artists and creative people who might be doing the physical video edit, might be creating some visual effects or doing audio editing, graphics, things like this. And all those different stakeholders coming together, it's just a very, very chaotic by nature process.
Wait, the creative process is chaotic?
Yeah, you can imagine.
Even in Germany?
The more people you point at something, the more chaotic it gets, right? And that chaos, it really strains technical resources and engineering resources. By putting a collaboration platform and a framework in place, which is what we do, we can automate structure for that post-production, and which really makes better usage of resources.
You landed in the CEO job not too long ago, a couple of years ago now, I guess, right?
Yep. Having that sales background kind of helped me a lot there because I knew what was coming in and what wasn't, what our cash flow was going to look like. Yeah, and then digging in, rolling up your sleeves, and getting into all those other things that are not sales, right? All the operational, financial, back office stuff.
Since then, tell us about some of the victories you've had and a couple of main stumbling blocks that you've experienced.
We did really well. We signed a couple of large contracts with some big, global names.
Can you name drop?
Disney, the Walt Disney Company.
Nice.
We signed a couple of OEM agreements with different storage vendors that also helped us. One of the things I'm really proud about from a sales perspective is that we've sold Strawberry into 30 different countries around the world. There's a cliche in sales that you have hunters and farmers. Well, so the hunter is the guy that goes after the big game and can take down and close new business, right? And then there's the farmer who plants the seeds, watches it all grow, and then reaps the harvest. Everyone wants to be a hunter. No one wants to be a farmer.
When you first said that, I thought being the farmer is the person you want to be, and that's what most salespeople would want to be because they're the people who are thinking long term. But the second thought that I had is that both of them are valuable, but just at different stages, right? Like you need a hunter right out of the gates so that you're bringing revenue in real quick, but you still need a farmer for your long-term vision.
Yeah, I'll give you the example. Our average selling price was basically under 10K in the early days. So if I'm trying to hit $1 million, I looked at that and I said, okay, I need 100 customers. I can't get 100 customers from Germany. I've got to go abroad and I've got to start to build partner relationships and businesses in these other geographies to try and make that happen. Then you take down some of those deals and you grow your business, but you don't have deep roots in any of those geographies. Germans need years and years to make up their minds and make a sale. Having said that, Germans are extremely loyal when you actually do close that sale. So I intentionally made a coin operated decision as a sales guy to try and build a business in other geographies because I thought that was the best way to get to my number in 2013 and 2014. But as a result, our business in Germany has lagged behind because I did not make those investments in this space that could have yielded a much larger business in our home territory 5 years later.
They say the best founders are the ones that look at themselves first and what they could have done differently before they look at what everybody else does. And I definitely see you doing that. I mean, you're doing it right in front of me. So that speaks.
I've hit every landmine, Timo. So I if you want to know what not to do, I can tell you.
Every landmine, and you're still standing. So that speaks to the future of Projective. When you're talking to potential clients, do people react to you differently or approach you differently inside the European market, inside the DACH market, as opposed to, let's say, the North American market?
Our industry is a little bit unique in that the media production industry tends to be very open to new technology and young companies. That being said, certainly there's still big companies that will, that will distrust intuitively a small company. One of the challenges we have as a company is our sales cycles are intensely long. Like the Disney deal, we were talking to them, we've been talking to them for probably 7 years, and it was probably 4 before they started to actually implement. And that's not uncommon for post-production collaborations.
7 years.
Yeah, that
That is a
yeah.
hell of a long time. How representative of that are your other deals that you've made? Are the sales cycles, you said that they were longer here in Germany. How much longer are we talking?
Well, not longer than 7 years. I knew that if I invested in Germany, if their sales cycles are on the average 3 years in Germany, I'm mixing my metaphors now, but I did try to plant seeds in different countries because I thought, hey, that hedges some of my bets. We've placed a lot of small bets, and the ones that come in will keep us alive, while the ones that don't.
This might be an odd question. I'm not sure about this. Is there a way that you can measure or at least have a good feeling for the critical mass that you need of smaller customers before you can really approach and hope to land one of the bigger customers?
Having both enterprise customers and enterprise approach and small run rate business, because the requirements of both of those customers are completely different. Lock down who that straw man customer is that you're going to go after in the beginning, and have a very, very clear picture of what your value to them is, what the target customer is you're going for, and what the size of that potential market is. And you may not have the technical expertise or the skill or the resources to manage some of the big customers, and you may not have the automation and the scale to get enough small customers. So you might end up, falling in the crack in the middle.
So, aside from that advice, and I find that to be very good advice, making sure you understand your target customer, your customer profile, and your market first. If you were starting this business today, and you, the present you, could give advice to the very inexperienced Derek Barrilleaux coming from enterprise sales, what would you tell that Derek?
That's a great question. Oh, make sure that the visions are aligned. You need to have alignment on what that goal is right up front. You need to have deep enough pockets that you can live while you're building up the business.
There's definitely some good advice for future past Derek.
Yeah, I wish we'd have gone and gotten funding right in the beginning. Funding so that while sales Derek was going out and recruiting and getting partners and building a team, that would have scaled the business. And I think we'd be in a much different place than we are today.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because a lot of the time I hear from startups that are around the Series A, Series B, they'll say things like, we probably didn't need that second round of funding. We probably could have just bootstrapped it and we gave away a lot of equity. And here we're hearing the opposite. We're hearing kind of the argument for taking angel or VC capital because it does afford you a chance to start in a higher gear.
It can definitely be a poison chalice, right? At the same time, because we've grown organically, any mistake that we make in terms of hiring or productization or going after the wrong customer, opportunity costs a bitch, man. You're funding that from your revenues. It's painful if you hire the wrong people and make those mistakes, because it takes you a while to to iron those out.
Sure. I guess it gives you more leeway to take risks, but at the same time, it might not build in the sort of carefulness that somebody growing organically might have to. Let's jump to our next topic here, um, and talk a little bit about your impressions of working in Germany. What I'm interested in, since you've been here so long and you have such a wonderful international perspective, if any, what are some of the main changes you've seen in how people do business here in Germany since you first arrived?
If I were comparing what's different in a North American to a German model, the single
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing that jumps out to me is the difference in banking and financing. when I first joined, we took down a pretty sizable deal for a customer, and because we were a brand new company, partner that we were working with wanted some guarantees that we weren't going to just take their money and run. So they had this requirement that we do a bank guarantee. It's not uncommon in enterprise business. So basically, we went to our bank and we said, "Hey, here's a contract. We're going to deliver this here. It says in the contract we're going to deliver this in 60 days." And I couldn't get a single German bank to sign up for it. The answer was hard no. It was guaranteed business. So I went to these banks and I said, "Name your rate. Name your rate. It's basically a max 90 or 120-day bank guarantee that you're going to extend." Basically, in Germany, everything was a hard no. In North America, they would say, "Okay, well, this is an interesting case. You're a young company, you're higher risk, 10% on a 4-month bank guarantee," right? That would have been a lot to pay, but you would have gotten someone to do it. You wouldn't have had to go to a loan shark, right? And in Germany, it was flat no from every bank that we talked to, and I talked to multiple banks.
So what are German loan sharks like then?
Well, I actually did not go to a loan shark.
I'm very happy to hear that.
But what I did do was I basically renegotiated the agreement. We took the risk. We had to make do with less cash, but we were confident in our ability to deliver. And there was a joke, and they were saying, "Don't ask for a bank guarantee, on a 100 or a couple hundred grand. Ask for a bank guarantee on 100 million, and you'll get it." The people you're talking to at the high end, those are people who, it's in the interest of the bank to be flexible, so they find a way.
You do often hear these archetypes thrown around of the German company, the German bank that is more risk averse
Mm-hmm.
than a lot of other Western counterparts. But rarely do you hear an actual story where it plays out right in front of you.
I've got a few of those, unfortunately.
So for our last part now, we're going to get into our win, lose, or draw game. I'm going to give Derek a concept, and he's going to tell me whether he thinks it's a winner, it's a loser, or a draw. Derek, are you ready to play win, lose, or draw?
Spin the wheel. Let's spin the wheel.
Let's spin it. First one, win, lose, or draw, all media creation moving into the cloud in the next 5 years.
Post-production was chaotic when it was guys running around with reels of film, and then post-production moved to hard drives and nonlinear editing machines, and it was chaotic. And then the storage for those nonlinear editors moved from these little drives into network attached storage machines, and it was chaotic. And then it moved from those NAS machines to bigger clustered NAS or SANs, and post-production was chaotic. And now the same people are looking at this and saying, "You know what? What's going to solve all my problems is putting it in the cloud. Let's put it in the cloud." Guess what? You guys are chaotic. So it becomes more and more important to have structure and automation and use those resources intelligently, because you're paying a monthly fee on the cloud resources that you use.
Do you think creating content, creating media, is just inherently a chaotic process, or could it ever get to a point where it resembles something like an orderly process?
The move to the cloud is moving to us. It's moving to what we do. And there's a lot of the customers that we have different post-production islands around the world. It's not difficult to send a file from London to Germany to Singapore, right? That's not difficult. But what is damn near impossible is sending a project structure that you can move between London and Germany and Singapore and LA as you see fit. And that's kind of the holy grail, and that's what we're
Making sense out of the chaos. Yep, I like it. Next one. Win, lose, or draw. Germany becoming a major force in media and content creation.
maybe that one's more of a draw from an engineering perspective, and from that there's a mass of really talented artists and engineers in Germany built around media production. I can see some individual content breakthroughs that'll happen, but I don't see the Germans taking over the content production.
Then our last one. Now, this one, I have to admit, is a bit of a loaded question because, as Derek knows, I spent quite a few years on the product side. So I spent a lot of time with developers, people doing the programming, people doing product concept, and Derek comes from the sales side. And oftentimes these two sides don't see the value in what the other one does. So this is my question to you, Derek. Win, lose, or draw, sales and product and programming equally valuing each other's work?
I'm going to say hard lose on that one. Um,
I think I set you up for this one.
You did. I think there's also a one-way street. I think more salespeople appreciate the technology and development guys than the opposite. Technology guys invariably don't understand what sales and marketing is and does, and based on that, they tend to think if I build it, they will come. Then when they don't, they're shocked that not everyone in the world has bought their product. The opposite is, okay, sales and marketing people don't understand what's going on under the hood. Sales and marketing is beholden to the people on the product side, because you can't sell something that doesn't exist. You can't build these silos and have product doing product and sales doing sales. You need to have everyone pulling together, trying to lift that. I want to say, presently with my company, I'm truly blessed to have technology people that genuinely do understand and do work with our amazing customer base.
You're 100% right about this. It's always better when everybody's talking to each other, and even better when they're working with each other. I have worked with quite a few different developers, and the best ones were not necessarily the fastest developers who could spit code out really, really quickly, even if it was high quality code. That's great. The best developers I found were the ones who are also thinking about the user experience. Those are the best ones, because it is great having that extra pair of eyes from the technical side on it.
Timo, I'd take that a step further. Even as a developer, you're making an investment, getting on the ground floor of something that's going to become big. The something you're getting on the ground floor of is your business. And so you need to take even that next step beyond that and make sure that those developers see that, hey, you can build the greatest product in the world, but if the business isn't viable, that product will be dead and you'll be out of a job. It's not just about the code I'm building, it's about the business that we are building together, and is able to then take that next step and think, okay, well, how does this translate into the business?
I think I just gave you a really good example of how myopic product people can be. That was Win, Lose, or Draw. Derek, thanks so much for coming on and sharing with us all of your insights, your experience, your wealth of knowledge. I pulled quite a bit out of this podcast, this hour with you myself, and I hope our listeners have as well. So thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Timo. And look forward to doing it again sometime. Whether I can walk you through all of the landmines.
I hope so. That was our chat with Derek Barrilleaux. Thanks to everyone for joining us this week. Be sure to look for us on social media. We're at Startup Knockout. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week.